Welcome back, Spiffers. It's good to see all of you again. Welcome to another Salesforce Spiff tip of the week. Again, my name is Jamie Woodhouse. I am the CEO and founder of SaaS Educators and like to do everything I can to help out the Spiff admins learn how to use the Spiff system. Hope you've been finding these valuable and you've been learning little things with each one of these. Again, as always, please add to the comments any topics that you have questions about, and I'll try to put some topics around those things. Let's just jump right into it today. So today, I'm building off of actually what we discussed last week, which was the purpose of teams within Spiff. We focused a lot on the visibility of statements and how you can kind of affect who has access to see whose statements based off of the team structure. The other part that I talked about was that the other thing that teams impact within Spiff are rollups. So if you want their managers or team leads to get a commission based off of how their team is doing, that's the other purpose of teams. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is how do we build a team rollup, and how do we set up that data so we can start building and paying some commissions off those. So let's go ahead and get started on that. All right. So we are in our Spiff system, and just to remind us, we've got a couple of different teams. We've got, I'm making sure I'm zoomed in. Let me zoom in here so you can see it a little bit easier. We've got three teams that we use in my training environment. We've got the AE training team, the BDR training team, and the VP of sales teams, just to show that there can be multiple levels. So we've got Mallory Rowe, who is the manager of Brenda and Byron on the BDR training. Elise, who is the manager of Ava and Chloe, who's part of the AE training. And the VP of sales, and if I click into the VP of sales, we have Charles, who has sub-teams, so he's over each of those sub-teams. So if we go ahead and look, we can see that he should have access to each of those teams that are underneath there. Now, the way that my data is set up is on the teams. My BDR training data is in a table or an object called BDR deals, where the AE training team is getting pulled from opportunities from Salesforce. So since everyone's more familiar with opportunities from Salesforce, I'm going to focus on this group. But just remember that we've got Elise, who is the manager of these two, but Charles also is the VP of sales who's over the AE training team. And so you'll see how the roll-ups actually work, to where Elise will get a roll-up for these. Charles will get a roll-up with these as well. If Brenda and Byron, if their data existed in the opportunities object, then he would also get those included as well. But you're just going to have to kind of pretend that a little bit, or take my word for it, because the data is separate. So we can't build the filters to go across multiple objects. You have to build the filter on each object. So we're going to focus on the opportunities object. So let's go into Designer. And as I kind of alluded to, as I was saying, the way that we do the team roll-ups so that the managers can get paid a commission percentage for their team members, it's done through a data filter. We talked about data filters a few videos ago. I will have links. Actually, there are links below to both the team segment that I did, as well as the data filter segment that I did, the tip of the week for those, so that you can review those if you want to review those before we get into the team roll-up. So we go into our data tab in the top left here, and we click on filters to get to our data filters. And it works the exact same way as it would a normal data filter. I can expand my opportunity object to be able to see my opportunities here, or my filters that I have built so far. And we built some of these in the data filters tip of the week. But now what I can do here is when I click on the three dots to the right of the object name or the table name, that kind of goes synonymous. Instead of creating a new filter, what I'm going to do now is create a new rollup filter. So rollups are for teams. If we want managers, team leads, VPs, anybody who is kind of on an upper level to get credit and build commission plans based off of how their team did, this is how we do use the rollup filters. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the new rollup filter. It gives me three different options that I can choose for my rollups. The most common one, which is recommended, and it gives you kind of an example here on how it's going to work, but let me just explain to you really quick the differences between these three. The rollup for team lead is basically just going to use your team structure. If you want to pay out a percentage of commissions on how their teams are done using the team structure that we built in the previous tip of the week, then you can keep it here and it will work for all managers, all team leads. You don't have to have a separate team rollup for, we've got Elise as a manager, or Mallory as a manager, or Charles as the VP. We don't need to have separate rollups for each of them. We can just say, follow the team structure. This team structure will work for whichever manager we select. So we really ideally only have to create one if we've got our team structure set up correctly. That's what we're going to build today. It's the most common. Just 30 seconds to explain the differences between these other ones. Shared rollups are more for you want to define the rollup structure of who's going to, count or get a commission of the population. Remember, the data filters, we're building the population. We're not building the commission payout rule yet. We're just wanting the population of all the deals or all the opportunities that we want them to get commissions off of. So for the shared rollup, this would be like, I want to create, for an example, a rollup structure for the entire company. And so we have at Spiff, when we were at Spiff, prior to the Salesforce acquisition, every quarter we would get a bonus based off of how well the company did, every employee across the company. This would be a shared rollup. We would call it company-wide rollup, and it would just include everybody. We could actually select which teams we want to include on that, just in case there are some exclusions that we want to do. But then we can use this and give it to everybody if we want to, or selected users to be able to do it that way. So that's how you can do that one. And then you've got this rollup by user, where this gets really, really specific to where you can build different rollups for specific users that are not part of a team hierarchy, or you don't want to do it across a large population. You just want to do it by really specific selected users. Then you can do the rollup by user. They aren't used very often, but just in case you need to get really, really specific on your rollups. So we're doing the rollup for team lead. Let's click back on that. Click on next. And it's just going to recap our team structure. We've got Charles. He's the VP of sales. He's going to be over these sub teams so that we know these 4 users are going to be rolled up to his commission plan. Elise has these 2 users. Mallory has these 2 users. So you can see all of your team managers that are going to be on the left. You can click into those and go ahead and just double check their team hierarchy, making sure that it's including the people that you want to include for that. Now, if you remember last time when we were talking about visibility, we talked about adding team managers, sub-managers as team members to a hierarchical structure. So for Charles, for example, we could add Elise and Mallory as team members of him so that he can have visibility into their statements as well. I don't have that turned on right now for a specific reason. You'll notice when we have Charles, he has 0 users on his team. So I don't have Elise or Mallory as team members for him anymore. So he's just going to get roll-ups for the sub-team members. But I'll show you in a second how we can surpass that if we want to give him commissions for Elise and Mallory and how they did, but not give him visibility into their statements. You can definitely do that. All right. Last thing, we can hit the select manually button here if we wanted to say, oh, I want to make some manual changes to this. I don't recommend doing that because as soon as you hit select manually, anytime there's any teams that change that you select manually, you're going to have to come back into this rollup and select them manually. I really like this team rollup to be automatically updating as soon as we add new teams, as we add team members, take off team members. It's going to dynamically refresh and update based off of our team structure if I don't hit the select manually and I just keep it automated the way that it is. So if there are people you don't see here that you're expecting, go back to your team, set it up correctly on the teams, then come back and set up your team roll up. So that it stays automated and you don't have to worry about manually updating this every time you have new team members or new teams. All right, let's go ahead and click on save so that it will take us to this rollup type. I'm going to rename my rollup filter. I'm just going to call this team rollup. Notice that it is an orange color on the icon instead of purple, knowing that the purple ones are specific for non-team rollups. They're not rollups. They're just normal data filters, where the orange ones or the red ones are actually team rollups, so that you can visually see that. But I like adding that into the name as well. All right. So the final thing that we need to do for this rollup is we just need to go through these 1, 2, 3 steps over on the right-hand side. This is very unique to the rollup filters. You don't see this 1, 2, 3 in any of our other filters or other items that you need to set up. This is just for rollups. This is if you accidentally selected rollup for team lead, but you wanted to do shared or by user rollup, you can click on this and it will just take you back here where you can make some edits there. Same thing with the edit rollup assignment. It'll take you here to where you can manually change things if you need to do any of those things. So instead of when you click on the rollup, you just have to edit it over here to get back into it. You don't have to create a new rollup every time changes are made. You can choose, it's basically saying, okay, since this is under the opportunity object, how do we want to match up the opportunity to the rep or to the individual that we are considering under the team. So it really just depends on the data. Do we have a by user data like we have here? We've got our owner ID that we saw previously in our data filter video, that we have this owner ID that connects to all the reps. So by user, we're going to connect it to this owner ID. Each user has its own opportunity and its own user. That's what this is saying. How do you want to match up an opportunity? Each row that you have in your opportunities, are they by user or are they by team members? If the data comes across where there is a team ID and that's how you identify the opportunity, then you can choose it by team. If you're syncing the data from Salesforce, it always has the owner ID by user or some unique identifier in a column, a BDR ID or a CSR ID or something like that to identify it by user. So we just want to go ahead and keep it by user. And it says, okay, so if this is giving me an opportunity and each row of the opportunity is a different user's opportunity that we want to give credit for, well, how do we identify the users? So we match the opportunity to users. We just say, all right, I want to take this owner ID field that I have in the data. So I search for owner ID. And I want to connect that to their rep ID, just like we did in previous data filters. But this time, it's going straight to the user table. So we don't have to specify the rep.id like we did in the previous data filters. You can just say, okay, I'm looking in my user fields. It gives me a lot of different user fields that I can connect it to. And the ID of the user field is pulling the unique identifier from the user table as you're syncing it from Salesforce. So we want the owner ID to match up to the ID. That's how we're going to tell which team member is getting credit for what opportunity that's on there. And this is why I deselected or did not include Elise and Mallory on the VP of Sales Charles's team, because we do have a setting here to include the team lead's opportunity in this roll-up. So if we don't want the VP to have visibility to the manager's statements, but we do want him to get credit for their sales if the managers are doing sales as well, I can go ahead and just check that box, and the managers and team leads will be included in the roll-up. I don't have any actual data that is tying any of these opportunities to Elise Tucker, my manager of the AE training team, but I'm just going to check that anyway, so that you can see that's how you can include those team leads opportunities to that. If you check this box as well as have them on the team, it's not going to duplicate any of the data. All this is saying is it's not going to filter the team lead data out. It's not going to duplicate data. So if you have both this checked as well as them on the team, it's totally fine to be able to do that. All right. Last thing, hang in with me here. We're almost to the end here. The last thing that we want to do is we want to set a time frame for the opportunity. Now, here is a really big mistake that people make when they're using roll-up filters is they think, oh, okay, I want to filter this down just like I did with my data filters to only pay them commissions on everything paid out in the period or closed in the period or closed in the quarter or something like that. And so they say, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it in the current period or the current quarter because that's what I'm basing my data off of. This has nothing to do with the date parameters of your filters. Think of this as a building block. Remember, with our data filters, we do one field at a time, one column at a time to do our building blocks, and then we combine them together at the end to get them to work the way that we want to. This is just giving us the team members. And so the only reason why we have a set time frame for this is because if we didn't, it's going to give you possibly every user, every rep in your system at the VP level. And that's a lot of data for this computer to filter through, and it will really slow down your system. So what we recommend doing is changing this to rolling 2 years. That'll make it so that you at least have a 2-year rolling window of all of your team's data. And so it's not going to bog down the system. You might have to trim this down a little bit if you're finding this is still really slow because you're a large company and you have a lot of data. You can definitely trim this down, but we recommend doing rolling 2 years. That way it'll catch the data and you can define the period that you're looking for, whether it's in the current period or in the current quarter with another data filter, because this is just the building block grabbing all the team's deals. The dates will be another building block. The closed one will be another building block, just like our data filters. All right. And the final thing is it says, okay, so he said, what's the date range of the population we want to grab? And so we go ahead and just select the date. And just like our other date filters we always want to filter it based off of when it was closed. So we go ahead and choose the close date of the opportunity. And that will give us our team roll-up data filter. Now notice right now it says no matching records found. It's because I'm in my BDR plan right now. And that is going to show me data from the BDR deals table. They don't have data from the opportunities table. So I'm going to go to my manager plan because I actually want to look at just the managers that I'm looking for. And I can see with Elise Tucker, if I know the unique identifiers for Elise's team members, I can actually see that these are for Ava Sassna and for Chloe, because they are the ones that are on their team. If I go to Mallory, she's over the BDR plan. The data is in a different object. And, it looks like there are some things that are coming up for Mallory, which is great. And then finally for Charles, we can kind of see more data from more team members to be able to do this. I always recommend double checking all of the data, making sure that it's coming back based off of what you're expecting, so that when you build out your commissions, you can use these. Now, again, the last thing that we do is this is just the building block to get all the teams deals. Now I need to put it and combine it with other building blocks to get the data that I actually want. And so I've got some existing filters that I have that I already created for like closed by the team in the period. And so I can see that this is for the team closed one in the period. And I can see for Charles, this is what's pulling up for his team that closed in December. Elise, this is her team. It's probably the same because her team rolls up to his team. And then Mallory, this is where we don't see any records because her team does not have any data that's been closed in this period that we have there. So that gives me the population that I need. Now I can go ahead and start building some new payout rules and go to my plans tab and actually start building out the commission logic behind that population. This is just to get to the team data and by using the team rollup filter. So I hope this was helpful, and so that you can understand how teams work with rollups, so that you can start paying commissions or building commission plans for your managers and management within the Spiff commission system. All right. As always, please go to SaaSeducators.com. There is a link in the comments below to where you can come and join me. I do classes, I call them seminars, that I do across the country, where it's a 3-day admin boot camp that will go into a lot of details like this, and you can really learn your Spiff system. The other thing, I don't know if I've mentioned this in previous videos, you will get your own hands-on environment that is not your production environment that you can kind of play around with as we build together within our test environments. And so I'll be able to give you some separate environment to play around with, so that you can really play around with things and not worry about, as you're experiencing and experimenting and learning Spiff, that you won't break anything in your production environment. So it's a great opportunity to have that. You'll have that for a while after the training. It typically is about a year. And so it's a great way to have a separate environment that you can play around with that actually has some test environment data. So come and join me. Hopefully I'm coming to a city near you. If not, just let me know on the website. There's a little form you can fill out to let me know a city that you want me to come to, and I'll come set up a class near you so that we can do these interactively in person. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you later.